I'm going to be sharing my screen, so just give me a moment and I will pull up the presentation. Okay. All right, so I just wanted to make a quick note again that this will be recorded and shared after the info session completes. My name is Steph Halpin. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager here at NYC Service, and I'm going to be kicking off our session today. So just a quick overview. Today you'll learn a little bit more about NYC Service, as well as the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, the fellowship, some expectations, the application process, life after the fellowship, and you'll also hear directly from each hiring manager, aka your future supervisor. Then we'll close with a few reminders and resources. Like Aaron mentioned earlier, you'll notice a chat feature. Please use this to ask any questions you have. We will answer all questions after the info session, and we'll email them out to all of you to the full group. So let's go ahead and get started. For the most part throughout this presentation, you'll hear mostly about NYC Service. You will hear from Lovely from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs later during the hiring managers portion of the presentation. So who we are, NYC Service is a division of the Mayor's Office focused on expanding civic engagement through volunteerism and service. NYC Service's mission, we build partnerships to deepen and expand civic engagement through volunteer and service programs, creating sustainable change for our city's greatest needs. Our vision is to unite New Yorkers in service to advance lifelong civic engagement for a more equitable and inclusive city. All right, the real question, what is the fellowship like? Now that you know a little bit about NYC Service, we'll go into what the experience is like and what you can expect. So this fellowship is made up of a cohort of coordinators. And this fellowship varies from other opportunities for many reasons, but I'll go over these three defining factors. So for city government, NYC Service is a division of the Mayor's Office, and each coordinator works with a portfolio of city agencies and mayoral offices or community-based organizations. The commitment. This is a one-year commitment with the opportunity to extend for up to 3 years in total. Professional. The centerpiece of this fellowship is professional full-time work experience as a coordinator. Each role is a vital member of the team contributing to NYC Services and Moya's work. And with that, I will pass it off to the NYC Service Year Director, Christy Venable. I'm just going to make sure that she can access the slides.
Thanks, Steph, and welcome everyone to today's info session. So I want to emphasize that as a coordinator at NYC Service, or the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, you represent the Office of the Mayor and are a public servant. Embracing the mission and vision is key to meeting the needs of the volunteers, national service members, partners, and organizations we serve. Other expectations for all coordinators accepted in the fellowship include accepting autonomy to drive projects forward, taking an initiative, and also being excited to take on new responsibilities, exhibiting respect and appreciation for an open office, your colleagues, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and being flexible and collaborating on projects or events as a team. Moving on, in terms of the values and beliefs that we share as an office at NYC Service, these values and beliefs are baked into all that we do. They give you insight into how all staff at NYC Service develop and guide the work. And each coordinator is responsible for incorporating these values and beliefs into their daily and long-term projects. Now I'll pass it over to my colleague Denishua to go over the application process.
Hi, I'm Denisha Ramirez. I'm the administrative assistant, and I'm going to walk you through the application process for the fellowship program. So we're going into the basic requirements. So one of the first requirements, keeping in mind when you are applying for the fellowship program, is making sure that you live within the 5 boroughs of New York City. If not, also having a residency of 90 days within the 5 boroughs and being approved to work in New York City. Then looking into education, having a bachelor's degree and making sure that is within the 4 years of undergrad or graduate program. And then lastly, it would be service, making sure you have at least 1 year of national service volunteer experience, whether it's in the AmeriCorps program or a national service program. And then moving along, we're going to get into the application components. So the first step would be the online application. As you may have applied or interested in applying, you can save responses and return them later. Always keeping in mind that you should always go back and complete the application. A few documents that are required within the application is your official transcript or unofficial transcript if needed. It would be requested upon moving further along the steps in the interview process. Third would be your resume, a 1-page in length. Fourth would be your essays, which are part of the personal statement and the policy recommendations. And then fifth would be your references. Submit to contact info and we will connect with them. And then lastly would be submit. And I just want to enforce the fact that you have to be responsible of these documents that are requested and also of your references, because if we do not receive all the documents and both of your references, we won't be able to review your application and we will count it as incomplete. So moving along, just a few items on what our website looks like and our webpage where you could find further information. To view all position descriptions, as you see on the screenshot of our website on the related documents, you find all the instructions, the eligibility, the frequently asked questions, the application and onboarding timeline. You can access the application from here, access all the instructions you may need to know to complete your application. And if you start an application, once again, you can return to your application using the link that's sent in your inbox when you initially start the application. So who typically applies for the fellowship program? Usually it's people with the interest of community building, service, government, and project design. Backgrounds, we received candidates from all over the country. When we say all over the country, every state, and even from out of the country as well. Also, some applicants are right out of college. Some have master's degrees, some have professional work experience, and some don't. It's all in range of your professional experiences and education. And aspirations is to grow career in government and nonprofit or corporate social responsibility sector. So just to get into what the timeline looks like. So the application was released April 24th. That's when we initially opened it. And when our deadline is on Friday, June 5th at 5 p.m. On this deadline, I just want to enforce the fact that all required documents must be submitted. We won't take any further documents after that date. So please make sure that everything's in by then. And then the phone screen interview process is between June 15th and July 31st, when you would also be virtual panel interview with some of our NYC Service staff. July 31st, we would receive a notification of acceptance. And then between July and September, we would begin the onboarding process, which initially takes about 3 weeks for the vetting process, making sure you're all checked out. with HR, and then we will be welcoming you to NYC Service in September. That's when you begin your fellowship, which will be a 365-day agreement and commitment to NYC Service and the fellowship program. So with that being said, Steph. Good.
Awesome. Thank you, Denisha, and thank you, Christy, for all of the wonderful information. Now is the really exciting part of this info session where you meet the hiring managers. So each hiring manager will have between 4 to 6 minutes to just give a brief description, introduce you to themselves, and just kind of try to give you a little bit more insight to the position beyond what you can read from the descriptions online. And first, we're going to kick it off with Lovely from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and she'll be talking about the Volunteer Program Coordinator position. Do we have Lovely on the line?
Hello?
Hi, Lovely.
Hi, I'm here. I can hear you guys. I think I was muted on your end, but I'm here.
All right, great. We have you on the line with all of the attendees. If you want to just briefly go over Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs as well as the Volunteer Program Coordinator position.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Lovely Pauliner. I am the Community Service Manager at Moya. I oversee the Community Service team and the Intergovernmental team, IGA. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Moya. Our office, the Mayor's Office, promotes the well-being of immigrant communities. Our 3 board goals are to enhance the economic, civic, and social integration of immigrant New Yorkers, facilitate access to justice for immigrant New Yorkers, and advocate for continued immigration reforms at all levels of government in order to eliminate inequities that impact the New York immigrant communities. I'm going to go to the next slide since you guys can't see me, so I'll just say next. Volunteer coordinator's job description. The position is not new. It's not a new position. It's a full-time position. The Moya's Office volunteer coordinator, we work with staff to advance Moya's volunteer initiative, collaboration with other volunteer programs, manages in and outside of Moya's and manages the trainings of IDNYC, special events, volunteer events. Due to the substantial growth of our volunteer pool and impressive civic responses from New Yorkers, we're eager to stand with and support the Mayor's efforts to protect immigrant communities. Moya's volunteer program has grown by 200% to over 600 active volunteers as of now and growing. The responsibilities are respond to and manage requests, next slide, for volunteers both internally at Moya and with other city aid partners, develop new and grow existing relationships with other city agencies and immigrant serving community-based organizations at Moya. Currently works to both recruit volunteers as well as offer additional volunteer opportunities. Recruit and engage immigrant volunteer across Moya, volunteer programs, Action NYC, ID NYC, We Speak NYC, special Moya events, and the volunteer language event. Next slide. The job description continues to assist in coordinating of volunteer trainings and events, all across Moya's program, assist in placing volunteers in safe, wide variety of volunteer programs, provide other support for staff, the senior staff at Moya on Moya's Moya current initiative, provides guidance and directions to volunteer assistance, provide weekly reporting for outreach for outreach to the community service team. We have volunteer training, leading recruitment of youth and engagement of incoming volunteers by managing Moya's volunteer inbox via tracking source, training events, show rates, individually volunteer assessment as well. I'm going to the next slide. We have the full staff is consists of Director of IGA, Intergovernmental Affairs and Community Service, which is Eileen, and myself, Lovely, Community Service Manager, which is the volunteer coordinator, a volunteer associate. We have community service coordinators, we have 3, and we have an intergovernmental affairs coordinator, which is 1. I'm going to the next slide. Our yearly project is our Immigrant Heritage Week, which we usually have in April, but this year we're gonna most likely, we are thinking of moving it to June because of COVID, but it's a huge project for us. Immigrant Heritage Week is an annual citywide program and event designed to recognize and celebrate the history and traditions and contributions of all NYC diverse immigrant communities. Also, we have our Volunteer Appreciation Dinner, which is dedicated to honoring all the volunteers in our communities, as well as encouraging volunteerism throughout the month. We would like to recognize our volunteers across Moya, because volunteer programs during Immigrant Heritage Week, and other special events as well. Moving on to the next slide. Working internal and external with communities to the public. The volunteer coordinator is responsible for promoting recruitment, training, and onboarding volunteers. Constant communication and collaboration across team at Moya, coordination of Moya's representation at external events with other city agencies and community-based organizations. Tracking volunteer metrics as well. It's huge for us. My final slide was which is type of collaboration. Moya volunteer program. We would like to continue working with NYC Service to connect other city agencies, community-based organizations, and nonprofits for volunteer opportunities and special events in order to increase community engagement and complete the necessary requirements to move to Moya volunteers. We plan to collaborate with NYC Service and promoting volunteer opportunities through the NYC Service social media or newsletter listing and other NYC government service website. The toolkits, resource guides, and recruitment of national service members, the service corps, civic corps, VISTA, and peer corps. We are, it's not included in my slide, but the work is, as we are into COVID, of course, the work continues. The volunteer coordinators, the work scope has continued remotely. So we are continuing to, successfully complete the work remotely, so which is awesome. I wanted to put that out there. So we're doing a lot more work, reaching out to a lot more volunteers remotely. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Lovely. And next we're gonna have Laura Rogg.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Steph. So I'm Laura Rogg. I'm the Director of Volunteer Strategy and Development at NYC Service. And I'm excited to have this position open this year. We've had a really successful string of fellows, including Evan Carl, who you'll be hearing from in a little while, who's come back to our office after his fellowship year a few years ago. As far as the volunteer strategy and development team, the big picture of our team is that we really look to develop strategy around how we get people engaged, in communities, in engagement, and just really coming together and how we all come together across the city. So my team focuses on a couple different things. We have a youth-based platform that half of my team focuses on. Then we also have our volunteer strategy and development coordinator that works very closely with me to really look at more community-based approaches, especially with nonprofits. So the big piece of the coordinator role is really thinking about how do we understand civic engagement in New York City? How do we really look at the ways people come together? How do we better understand it to help influence the work that we're doing at NYC Service, that our partners are doing with city agencies? So there's a lot of interagency coordination in those pieces. So past projects, this is a returning role. It isn't a brand new role, but every time we have a new fellow and every year it tends to morph a little bit, each year, year to year. So past projects have included things like conducting a community survey. That's something that Evan had worked on with us, where we actually went into 4 neighborhoods in Western Queens and managed volunteers to go out and conduct a survey. This past year, our fellow has been working closely. We've worked with CUNY Graduate Center and one of their sociologists to do a citywide email survey on volunteer engagement, so helping to support that process. But really the role this coming year is how do we take all of this knowledge that we found and really exciting knowledge that we found that people are engaging in much deeper ways than I think is typically seen in research around volunteering and civic engagement. So we're really thinking very deeply about how do we actually move forward with that and use that information. So there's two big elements of this position. The first one, as I mentioned, using this knowledge, we're actually taking it on a neighborhood level. So how do we bring people together in neighborhood volunteer collaboratives? This last year, we've been working in Flushing. So we've been able to bring organizations together in Flushing, really talk about volunteer strategy and ways that they can all come together to engage more people in the Flushing neighborhood. Moving forward, we're developing a toolkit right now. So the fellow next year will really be taking that toolkit and going out to additional neighborhoods to work with nonprofits, bringing them together, holding meetings to have everyone together to strategize volunteering in particular neighborhoods. And then the second piece of this is our annual citywide volunteer data collection process and report. So this is something that we issue every year. We go out and we do a big collection all over New York City with organizations and city agencies to find out how many volunteers they engaged in a particular year. For us, what's really exciting is that we're, in addition to looking at the research that's going on around civic engagement, we're also conducting our own research. So the Neighborhood Volunteer Collaborative is a part of that. The annual volunteer data collection that we run, the member really does a lot to actually manage that entire process. So getting the surveys sent out, collecting all the information, doing outreach, follow-up, a lot of that work. So it's a really exciting and fast-paced role. Again, one that's not brand new, but that has really developed and morphed over the years. And we're really excited for the role coming forward. And really, and a lot of this role is just helping us to figure out what are the ways that we can all come together in the city. So I think with the current circumstances around COVID-19, this role will definitely be very relevant, and we'll be doing a lot of thinking in the outpouring of support that's coming from communities right now as well. So, thanks so much, Steph.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And next we have Megan Tennis.
Hi, I'm Megan Tennis. I'm the Service Year Operations Manager at NYC Service. So the National Service Operations Coordinator position is going to be a brand new position within our National Service Program team. So at NYC Service, we administer 4 different AmeriCorps programs with each year support over 200 members serving in New York City. And with managing 4 AmeriCorps programs, we have a lot of data and information that comes into our office and into our team. And really the goal of this role is to think through how can we improve our systems that we use when collecting, reporting, storing all of this information, and how can we better take that information and use it to improve our programs? How can we use it to work with our comms department to better share the stories of our members? How can we work with our public-private partnerships team to share the stories of our members with funders? Because we have all of this information, but we just really haven't been able to figure out or have the time to think through how can we best use all of this data. So this person will be doing a lot of work with that, which is a big project in itself. We're also going to have 2 external evaluations of our programs that we'll be working on next year. So this person will be managing that, communicating with our external evaluators, working to get in contact with alumni, current members, old supervisors to make sure that we have the best external evaluations we can have. We also have an operations manual that was created a few years ago for our programs, but which really needs to be updated and again, kind of thought through how can we make this document really useful and relevant for all of the people in our office to use. And in addition to all of that, they'll be doing a lot of work with our Vista leader, who is an AmeriCorps member in their 2nd year, who is focused on supporting our Vista program. And the Service Year Operations, or the National Service Operations Fellow, will be working with them, a little more on the VISTA program specifically because they are the main person working on that program. Most of the work of this person will be internal facing with the National Service Team. We're the largest team within the NYC Service office with all of our coordinators. So a lot of work with our team, but also collaborating with public-private partnerships and communications. There'll also be some work with our nonprofit and city agency partners throughout the year as we're communicating and getting information from them. And I would say overall, this program is focused, or this position is focused on how do we better support our AmeriCorps members, not in the day-to-day support that our other coordinators on the team are focused on, but thinking through NYC Service's role with our AmeriCorps members and how we can improve our programs kind of within the NYC Service office. So yeah, excited to have this new position. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Megan. And next up, we have Christy.
Thanks, Steph. So for the NYC Service Year Program Coordinator position, this is also one that we've had for a couple of years now, and I've been fortunate to have some very talented individuals fill this role. In addition to us overseeing 4 AmeriCorps programs within NYC Service, we also work with the larger service year or AmeriCorps community that exists here in New York City. As a fun fact, you may or may not know that there are about 3,000 individuals on an annual basis who serve as AmeriCorps members in New York City. They are supported by about 60 programs across the city, New York City Service being one. And so what we do in this position and in collaboration with myself is we provide a range of services, resources, and programming to benefit the entire service year community here in New York. So that's inclusive of the service year members, service year alumni, and service year program staff. So I would say that this work essentially kind of fits into 3 buckets, which you see highlighted on your screen. The first is convene and mobilize the service year community here in New York. So we do that in a variety of ways. One is to engage the service year community in National Days of Service events. And so some of those key dates include 9/11 Day of Service in September, MLK Day of Service in January, and National Service Recognition Day in April. And with all of those events, it's typically service projects that we organize, but there also could be a networking or social element to those events. Additionally, we work very closely with the New York City AmeriCorps Alums Chapter to help them with the coordination of their chapter meetings, service projects, networking events, professional development workshops, and communications. On average, we're doing something with the chapter once or twice a month, as well as having monthly chapter meetings. We also manage what we call the NYC Service Year Member Council. And so this is a council that's comprised of current service year members from across New York City. We, on average, have about 12 or 15 individuals who are part of this council. And over the course of the year, they help to inform services and resources and programming that we develop to benefit all service year members in New York, as well as executing on some specific services and resources and events for service year members. Some examples from this current year, our Service Year Member Council, in partnership with the Alums Chapter, hosted a networking reception for members and alums from across the city back in early March. They've also organized some service projects that service year members could take advantage of, and have just recently launched a LinkedIn group for service year members and alums here in New York. We also support what we call the NYC Service Year Leadership Council. And so this is a body of about 40 different AmeriCorps and other national service programs from across the city. We meet on a quarterly basis and then do work together outside of those meetings. The second bucket would be promoting service year programming and opportunities in New York. With that, this individual would support the recruitment of AmeriCorps members to serve in NYC services for AmeriCorps programs. You would also be connecting with the public and other NYC Service Year stakeholders through social media channels, in particular Facebook and LinkedIn, to promote service opportunities, services and resources that may be of benefit, and what have you. And then the third bucket is really administer capacity building services and resources for NYC Service Year programs. So a big part of that would include supporting the planning and execution of the annual NYC Service Year Career Expo. This is an annual conference and career fair that we typically host in late May or early June. And it's open to all service year members and alumni across the city. The day is filled with a variety of professional development and career exploration workshops, and also includes a career fair where we typically have about 50 employers tabling. This year, we've had to change up the format for the Career Expo given the current pandemic. And so instead of it being an in-person one-day event, it's going to be a virtual week-long event the first week of June. But certainly, we hope that for 2021, we'll be back to doing an in-person gathering. And then also, the coordinator would help to produce resource guides for service year programs and members. One in particular that we do on an annual basis is called NY Core Connections. It's about a 50-page resource guide that we distribute to service year programs to pass on to their members at the start of their program year, so typically in late August. That just really provides them with a wide range of tips and tools for how to navigate New York City on a rather modest service year member stipend. So that's just a quick overview of this position. I think it provides an opportunity to do a pretty broad range of activities and also engage with a broad range of stakeholders. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Christy. And next we have Evan.
Thanks so much. You guys hear me? Just wanna.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. So yeah, my name is Evan Carl. I'm the Senior Capacity Building Manager and Supervisor for this role. So sort of just an overview on the NYC Service Capacity Building team. Our overall goal is really to enhance the ability of nonprofits and city agency partners to sustainably achieve their missions and impact city priorities through strategic volunteer engagement. So we're a very small, tight-knit team composed of our acting director, Laura Rogg. I don't think she mentioned that in her overview. Myself, the Senior Capacity Building Manager, and then two volunteer capacity building coordinators, one of which we'll be hiring over the summer. So the person in this role closely with other members of the team with sort of a focus on our portfolio specifically of city agency partners. And now, while by definition that would involve working on a host of different projects, two that I find compelling is first the NYC Service Bureau. And that's basically an internal volunteer capacity building model focused on supporting city agencies to carry out their programming and meet community needs through the engagement of volunteers. So we are currently, at this point in time, reviewing the various project plans submitted by city agency partners for this program. And then we hope to select our fiscal year 21 cohort prior to your arrival on the team. So over the course of your term, this work would involve really a host of different pieces. The coordinators would be managing relationships with partners and assisting in the sort of development and implementation of their volunteer impact plans. They would be tracking and reporting out on performance, while also implementing regular meetings with city agency partners to check in on progress and share best practices. So the other large project I would say is GoPass, and that involves serving as a sort of chief liaison between NYC Service and the Department of Education's Office of Personnel Investigation. And the coordinator in this capacity would essentially be working to manage one of the city's largest volunteer background check programs. They'd be leading trainings, implementing and providing guidance on system operationalization, communications, and then fingerprint policies for both nonprofits and city agency partners. So overall, those are some of the projects folks will be working on. I would say one of the largest benefits to working on the capacity building team is that notion that supporting agencies and organizations using human capacity and best practices, that's something that doesn't really discriminate. So it gives folks in this role a phenomenal opportunity to really work directly on a diverse array of programming. Some examples include a citywide CPR training program that's currently being operated by the New York City Fire Department. Others include programs like the ones overseen by the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs. And they are basically utilizing volunteers to increase rapid response activations to changes in federal policy. And then they work to educate and inform immigrant communities across the city. And this is a program that's capacity is aided in large part by volunteer programming. So I would say overall, it's a very dynamic position that involves a lot of pieces. In the age of COVID-19, its relevance and importance has only become even bigger. Our office is one of the key agencies in the Volunteer Coordination Task Force in response to COVID-19. And those folks on this team are doing a lot of work as they relate to our city agency requests coming in. So in that spirit, very happy to see so many people on the webinar today. And if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evan. And with that, we have the digital engagement coordinator position. And actually, I'm going to speak on that. So hi again, it's Steph Halpin, Communications and Marketing for NYC Service. I just wanted to go over some three main topics that are very specific to this position. This position is brand new. It will also join a very, very new communications and marketing team, which is me. So you'll be working very closely with me if you are taking on this role. That being said, there's a lot of room for growth and defining with this position. Aside from being aligned with NYC Service's mission and vision, the person in this role will have to be really comfortable with defining the role and working out any areas of ambiguity, as well as being ready to write often and project manage. You can see from the position description online that there are three main buckets of work: digital community support, content strategy, digital engagement. And all of those categories involve three main things: creative problem solving, tenacity in tackling the workload, and attention to details at every step of the process. That means tracking the process and the results to evaluate it, but also paying close attention to everything from an infographic to the spelling and grammar of anything that's going public facing. Something that may not seem super explicit in the position description is that the main focus of this role will be the new website that we are rebranding and rebuilding. So this position will support a full marketing and communications plan around the development of that new site, in addition to other annual NYC service campaigns. So if you think about our full department of one, or soon to be two, we work across teams at NYC Service and all of the different initiatives that go live annually, plus new projects and initiatives we are a part of. But this role will really, really, really be focused on the redevelopment of the site. And I'll just say, that being said, there's lots of cross collaboration. By nature of the work of communications, this role will work with all members of NYC Service, our internal team. and many city and nonprofit partners, as well as the general public. What's really exciting about the digital engagement coordinator position is not only is it new, but it also is sort of high stakes. Everything that you work on has the potential to go public and live and contribute to a larger portfolio. So it's a really exciting role to be a part of. And I believe, sorry, I'm just checking my notes. I believe that's everything. And if you have any questions, as I mentioned earlier, you can ask specific questions in the Q&A function here on WebEx. So if you have any specific questions about each of the positions that we've gone over, feel free to send those in and we can work on getting them back to you. But with that concludes our hiring manager intro. And next, I'm going to pass it over to Christy again.
Yeah, so I just want to briefly touch on life after the fellowship. You may be curious what some of the individuals who have served in our fellowship program have gone on to pursue post-fellowship. So typically they go down one of two paths immediately following the fellowship, either academic or professional. So in terms of academic, our fellows tend to move on to a broad mix of graduate schools and a broad mix of graduate programs. Some of the more popular graduate programs our fellows tend to pursue are Masters in Public Policy or Public Administration, as well as law school, and then also, some Masters of Business Administration. In terms of professional next steps, our fellows really do move on to a pretty good number of sectors, government, nonprofit, and private. Within government, certainly we have a good number who remain in local government and in particular New York City government. At present, some of our fellows are at the city's Department of Education, the Small Business Services, and the Department for Youth and Community Development. We also have fellows who move on to state and federal government job opportunities as well. Within the nonprofit sector, fellows are in nonprofits of all focus areas, of all sizes, and also just across the country and beyond. Some examples, we have a fellow currently serving, working at UNICEF here in New York. We have fellows former fellows at the ACLU, Student Success Network, just to name a few nonprofits. And then in terms of the private sector, we have former fellows working at American Express and EY for just two examples. So now I'm going to pass it back to Denisha to wrap us up.
Thank you, Christy. So before we conclude our fellowship info session, I'd like to just end with a few last reminders and some resources to guide everyone through. So moving along, just again to reiterate our application. All applications along with required documents and reference letters must be submitted by Friday, June 5th by 5 p.m. Also keep in mind, we will be sending reminders to the applicant and also to your references. So before we send out these reminders, we will be sending them out weekly. Be sure to remind your references and let them know you have listed them as a reference. We don't want to surprise them and then they have no idea that we will be reaching out. And then also another resource to always refer to is our website, nyc.gov/servicefellowship is your best resource. You could find one-pagers with the eligibility details, with the online application instructions, which go into detail in what is expected of the policy recommendation and also your personal statement. And just in regards to the personal statement, it does not mean a cover letter. So please read through the online application instructions. And then lastly, support. If you require any further assistance or have any questions that haven't been answered on our website or the FAQ that we will be sending out based off the questions that you will be submitting in the Q&A box here on the WebEx event. Please reach out to our email address, which is NYC Service Fellowship Fellows at cityhall.nyc.gov. With that being said, myself and the rest of the hiring managers would like to thank you for taking your time to learn a little more about the fellowship program, and we hope to hear from all of you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. If you could take the last few minutes of the webinar time to enter any Q&As, we can leave it open until 1 p.m. and after then it will close. So if you have any questions, feel free to jot them in there. And then, like Denisha said, we'll email them out so you have them, and we'll add them to our website as well.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be giving 1 more minute for questions, and then we will end the session. Okay, thank you all so much. If you continue to have questions, please feel free to email the service recruitment email address on the website. And as was said earlier, all of these questions will be posted after this event.